The New Orleans Saints and Green Bay Packers kicked off their joint practices today, and defense dominated all the way. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints, your team every day.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget that we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. And I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter, your New Orleans Saints expert, credentialed member of the media Crescent City Sports. Used to be Canal Street Chronicles, now Crescent City Sports. Saints Wire over at USA Today, Tuesdays on Locked On NFL, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. Thanks again for being here with us for another live episode of Locked On Saints. You can see we are here in the hotel room coming at you live from Green Bay, Wisconsin, to tell you all about the New Orleans Saints joint practices with those Green Bay Packers. Now, couple of quick disclaimers before we get started. I am coming at you live from a hotel room, so Wi-Fi might be a little spotty and stuff like that. So I appreciate your patience as we go through. And of course, don't forget to drop that your team every day in the chat if you're watching live. I'm seeing it already from Jerry. I'm seeing it from all of y'all, like Brett as well. So I appreciate you so much for being here and supporting another episode of Locked On Saints. And go ahead and get your questions in as well, because we'll do our second episode later on today, pre-recorded, in which I'll answer some of your questions in the third portion of that show. So let's kick off, as we always do, with the biggest story. The biggest story from New Orleans Saints training camp today could be that the defense is absolutely dominated training camp, and that's obviously the way that we're going to go here. Bradley Roby ended up with his 6th interception. Paulson Adebo brought an end to 2-minute drills when Aaron Rodgers marched the Packers down the field with 1 minute and 20 seconds left on the clock and ended up on a 3rd down in the red zone, knocking a pass away on a fade to rookie Romeo Doubs. And remember, that was a matchup that we talked about absolutely watching all throughout the joint practices here, and even going into next weekend, or the game this weekend against the Packers on Friday, was Romeo Doubs, who has been an absolute rookie sensation for the Green Bay Packers, of course, matching up with Paulson Adebo, who has been an absolute star in New Orleans Saints training camp. So you saw the two of them. You had a couple of back-to-back sacks as well by Cam Jordan at one point during team drills. Just an absolutely dominating performance by the New Orleans Saints defense. Hey, and the Green Bay Packers, their defense held up very well. Also, the way that I would look at this is that it was a lot of back and forth, and that both defenses did well. Both defenses ended up shutting down the opposing offenses over the course of team drills. And then when it got to red zone drills, each offense got a little bit more comfortable. We saw Aaron Rodgers with what I could tell was 2 passing touchdowns in the red zone. And then we saw Andy Dalton and Alvin Kamara hook up off of a pivot route where Alvin Kamara just absolutely just obliterated the linebacker that was in coverage on him. He comes in through the offensive line, kind of cuts inside, and then bounces back outside on the choice route and just left the linebacker in the dust. It was a walk-in touchdown for him. We saw a couple of other big plays and catches by Chris Olave and Michael Thomas, who can still get open even though he's not going up against his teammates in New Orleans, all of that. So no concerns there for the big stars, but the offenses did look a little bit better when it came to the red zone. However, when it got to 2-minute drills, no offense was able to get into the end zone on either defense. And those were drives, 5 different drives led by 3 Green Bay quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, and Danny Etling, who I did not realize was on the Green Bay Packers roster, if I'm being completely honest. And then Andy Dalton and Ian Book both also failed to lead any touchdown drives in the 2-minute drills as well. So not anything out of the ordinary there, right? It was pretty sort of stout in terms of the defensive play that we saw here. So it was absolutely dominating when it came to it. Marshon Lattimore spoke with us after the practice and was asked what it was that he learned today. And he said, well, I thought we all dominated. and everything. And then at one point he looked at Doug Mouton and said, wouldn't you say that we dominated? So there was a lot of confidence coming from that New Orleans Saints defense. And we saw it. We saw some jawing back and forth as well. CJ Gardner-Johnson and Jari Alexander, a star cornerback for the Green Bay Packers, who wears number 23, had a little bit of a back and forth with CJ Gardner-Johnson assuring the Green Bay Packers roster that the New Orleans Saints are the ones with the real 2-3, as he said it. So CJ Gardner-Johnson already Hall of Fame trash talking his way through joint practices so far, but no dust ups, no scuffles, anything like that. We did have one moment that got a little bit tense between Traquan Smith and two jammers during a gunner jammer special teams drill where Traquan Smith won against double teams, a double team set of jammers there, which was a performance that honestly Traquan Smith needed. He also had a nice catch over in team drills as well. But for the most part, the thing that you really saw in terms of, everything going on between these two teams was friendly, right? These guys that are just out there competing with one another. So you saw a lot of competition, but didn't see anything get handsy, didn't see anything turn into, a big scuffle or anything like that. So one more day of that tomorrow, and obviously that would be really, really positive for this New Orleans Saints team. Now, the other things to watch over on defense, a couple of other standout performances I want to highlight. Malcolm Brown's no longer on the roster, Malcolm Roach, who maybe had one of the more underrated performances in this matchup, to where he actually ended up winning on a couple of different plays in the run game, but then also had a moment in team drills 2-minute drills, where there was a 2nd and 10 just before the pass breakup that ended the drive, where Malcolm Roach as well as Eric Wilson got into the backfield and ended up chasing Aaron Rodgers out of the pocket, forcing him to throw the ball away. So it was a wasted down by the Green Bay Packers over on offense. So Malcolm Roach, definitely somebody to watch. And remember, we talked about this a little bit, right? The defensive interior would be something that would kind of have to shake out over the course of contact practices, padded practices, and the joint practices. So good to see somebody, in that Shy Tuttle, Contavia Street, who also had a pressure today, maybe even a sack, I would say, and then Malcolm Roach, all finding ways to sort of start to separate themselves in that competition. And of course, Jaleel Johnson is now back in that competition, as well as Albert Huggins. So lots of opportunities there to see, but good stuff from Malcolm Roach in terms of that performance. Chase Hansen also built on the momentum from this past weekend, where he had an outstanding performance against the Houston Texans. He had what would have been a sack on Aaron Rodgers, blitzing the A-gap at one point early on, and then also made some nice plays in the run game. Newly signed linebacker John Bostic also made some great plays in the run game as well. He's just 1 year removed from two back-to-back 100-plus tackle seasons, a new signee in New Orleans, now wearing number 47. He joined another player as well who came in and joined. He's at number 61. I believe his last name is Lalos. He's an edge rusher, number 60. He's an edge rusher with the New Orleans Saints there as well. So lots of good stuff. I see a question in the chat that I'll quickly answer. Michael Thomas, how did he look today? Looked good. Still continued to separate, like I mentioned a second ago, even though he's not playing against guys in black and gold jerseys, so you love to see it. Not anything super spectacular from either offense or their players, including Michael Thomas, but still a very, very solid day for Michael Thomas coming through. Coming up next, we're going to dive into all of the health that is trending upwards for the New Orleans Saints. The Saints saw Jameis Winston back, they saw Alante Taylor back, they saw Zack Baun back, and they saw other players take big steps and massive improvements in their recovery. We'll get to that as well as our play of the day as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Athletic Greens. Listen, everybody that knows me knows that I love my coffee. That is always one of the first things that I'll do in the morning, usually, except for when it's time for Athletic Greens. Because Athletic Greens, you do first thing in the morning. It's just 1 scoop of AG1 powder in a cup of water. Shake it up, take it down, and it is nice and simple. It gives you everything that you need with a whole bunch of balanced nutrients, minerals, everything, vitamins, all the stuff that you need for positive gut health, for better rest throughout the day, for good digestion throughout the day, all of that as well. 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens as well, which help you start the day off right. So you can always check out how to improve your life with AG1. So all the stuff that I absolutely love here. Right now, it's time for you to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with the convenience of daily nutrition. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1 year supply of its immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NFL network, all one word. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NFL NFL Network to take ownership of your health and get yourself the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Thanks again for being here with us for another live episode of Locked On Saints, giving you all of that post-practice goodness here on the show. And of course, we're going to get to all of your questions or some of your questions in the evening show as well. I want to speak a little bit on the New Orleans Saints health right now. The New Orleans Saints only had 2 players today that didn't participate. And so we'll kind of highlight a little bit of that. Pete Werner, which we'll dig a little bit more into and what it means for the Saints, as well as Nick Vannett. And Nick Underhill from over at NewOrleans.football clarified that Nick Vannett stayed back. He didn't travel to Green Bay because of illness, not injury. So obviously he still has to get well, but while he's at home resting, you might as well write him off and pin for tomorrow's episode or tomorrow's practice since he didn't make the trip. But even still, it's better news than some kind of injury that could potentially turn into a bigger thing or anything like that. But otherwise, the New Orleans Saints were in full attendance, which was really, really nice. We're used to having a pretty long list of upwards of 10 players not participating in practice at any given time throughout training camp so far this offseason. Today, only 2. And that's following a game, full game speed action and all that. Remember, one of the things that we talked about in yesterday's episode, one of the Monday episodes, is that the thing that came from the New Orleans Saints that was so important coming out of that Houston Texans game was health, no major injuries or anything like that. So today, the New Orleans Saints welcomed back a slew of players, including Jameis Winston, who was out on the field. He showed up. He was getting some work in before practice in pads, went back to the locker room, resurfaced later on in the day, not in pads, but still on the sideline, talking with Andy Dalton and Ian Book and KJ Costello, and going out there. At one point, he ran out on the field to congratulate Juwan Johnson on what looked like a really, really good run blocking play by the newly converted tight end. So Jameis Winston was out there present. He didn't participate in anything, no drills at all, no team drills, nothing, but still good to see him out there. And according to Dennis Allen, they're going to get a look at him tonight and tomorrow morning before making the decision on whether or not he will participate in tomorrow's practice, which will begin sometime around 10:30 Central Time or so. It's definitely something to keep an eye out on. And of course, you're going to wonder beyond that, is he going to perform or participate at all in Friday's preseason matchup? I wouldn't hold your breath there, but getting him ready to go before the Chargers game, I think, is a really good measure in terms of a goal to get there. So they welcome back Jameis Winston. They also welcome back Alante Taylor. Alante Taylor was present. He was in pads. Number 27 was out there. Didn't really participate much throughout practice. Didn't see him in team drills or anything like that, but that's okay. Good to see sort of the process moving forward when it comes to the hip flexor injury that Dennis Allen highlighted last week that Alante Taylor had been dealing with pretty much over the course of the entire week last week. So good to see him present. Again, didn't participate much like Jameis Winston, but was there on the sidelines, padded up, all that good stuff. So still a step forward. They also welcome back Zack Baun, who was immediately in pads and participating. Zack Baun, I think that this is kind of a homecoming for Zack Baun. And another player that we saw take a nice step forward was Ryan Ramczyk, the right tackle, who hasn't really taken a lot of the team snaps, but got a pretty good amount of team snaps during today's practices. And the two of them, Baun and Ramczyk, this was a little bit of a homecoming for both of them. Remember, they played at Wisconsin down in Madison for their collegiate football year. So I think there was absolutely no way that Zack Baun was going to be told, hey, you're healthy, you're good, you can go out there now, and then not actually get out there. So great to see Zack Baun get out there. I believe Dennis Allen clarified today that his injury was a hamstring injury that he was dealing with, but he was out there today. And he got some extra snaps, things like that, a lot of opportunity, particularly in special teams and stuff. But even with Pete Werner not out there, that just gives you some more opportunity to be able to rotate those linebackers in and around. Another player that took a really nice step forward today, Taysom Hill, New Orleans Saints tight end, former New Orleans Saints quarterback, of course, not in a non-contact jersey today. He was in a black jersey, no more red jersey for Taysom Hill, so he is out there competing, participating, all that. Had a really nice snag at one moment over the middle of the field with somebody completely draped over his back and everything. So you're seeing the pass-catching prowess there that you want to see from Taysom Hill. Still some development and things to continue to learn in the run game and in the blocking game, and even so much as catching too. We also saw one bounce right off of his chest piece. So there are those moments that are going to happen, of course, but let them happen in practice. All that they want while you continue to get comfortable, get into the offense, all of that. So Those are a bunch of the players that ended up making returns for the New Orleans Saints. As I mentioned, the Saints also added in John Bostic. They also brought back number 91, big defensive tackle Jaleel Johnson. All right, I saw somebody ask about Chris Olave. Chris Olave had a fantastic route at one point on a hitch route where he came back over the middle of the field. It was awesome. Absolutely lost his defender. But again, not really any big highlight moments from either offense outside of one big catch down the field by Allen Lazard that probably could have also been called a pass breakup. Really, really nice battle between he and CJ Gardner-Johnson on that play. That was in the 2-minute drill. But again, that ended up, yielding no points, or only 3 points rather, for the Green Bay Packers. So the Saints defense still won that rep. But outside of that, not really much highlighting happening over on the offensive side. But one of the big highlights, or what I would call the play of the day today, was Bradley Roby. New Orleans Saints cornerback, veteran cornerback, with his 6th interception of camp, this time on Jordan Love. Jordan Love tried to push a pass deep downfield. Bradley Roby just simply able to run the route for the receiver that he was in coverage, basically just taking the assignment from his assignment, able to go up, get underneath that pass, get in position, stay on the hip of that receiver, and come up with the interception. Bradley Roby has been outstanding so far throughout this camp. And I know that we've all paid a lot of attention to Paulson Adebo, and rightfully so, but there is a lot to be said about what Bradley Roby has brought to this team as a veteran presence and one that consistently makes plays as well. So even if he ends up as depth behind Paulson Adebo, it's depth you really, really like just about anywhere on the field, on the outside, in the slot, wherever it is that you need him. Bradley Roby has been able to impact practices, not only against his own team, but also against the Green Bay Packers on multiple occasions, and you absolutely love what he's bringing you so far. Coming up next, Pete Werner did not participate in practice today. He was not seen. So what does that mean for the linebacker room, which is now the room that's drawing so many question marks, why you shouldn't be concerned just yet? We'll get to all that as we continue on to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints. But first, I am so excited to tell you about our friends over at Elias, and in particular, the Elias Game Plan app. It is the only sports app from the most trusted name in sports stats, Elias. And think about it, right? Anytime that you see like ESPN stats and info, or even just ESPN when Mike Triplett and Kat Terrell, they tweet and they use all these like stats about all this crazy, just like this is the first time in NFL history that this thing has happened per Elias Sports. It's that Elias, but now on your phone. How cool is that? This is really kind of like new for this to be super accessible to everyone all of a sudden. So make sure you go and check it out. The official statisticians of the U.S. pro sports leagues, including the NFL. And of course, like I mentioned, you see all of their work over at ESPN as well. I love this new app, the Game Plan app by Elias, which includes opportunities for you to get a look at, team records, team stats, stuff that you need for your fantasy team, just impressing your friends, right? The stuff that, when everybody kind of is around talking about what they think they know they're talking about, Elias is the company that's going to give you that extra piece that makes sure you show them, yeah, but I got the granular knowledge here. I actually know what I'm talking about. So go and check it out. It's the Elias Game Plan app. Go and download it from the App Store today. Take my advice here. You'll want to download this app. And of course, we're going to be using it all throughout the season here, telling you some stats and info and things like that coming from this app and from Elias as well. So with the new features that are going to be coming up and that are available all the time, it's going to help you take your game to the next level. The NFL season is right around the corner, so don't wait. Find the Elias Game Plan app today in the App Store or Google Play Store as well. And I want to tell you about our friends as well over at Bet Online, your number one sports. Oh, I'm an idiot. I don't not Bet Online just yet. I love Bet Online, but I actually want to tell you about the protein bar. It's going to help you stay fueled all throughout the season. That's going to be Built Bar. That's what I want to tell you about today. So our friends over at Built Bar, best tasting protein bar on the market. Trust me, I've tried all of them, every single one of them. Mention a protein bar. Yep, tried it. Quest, tried it, all of them. I've tried all of them. But Built Bar, the absolute best tasting and best one out on the market. The protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. And that's not even me like being hyperbolic. It literally tastes like a candy bar. Listen to these flavors: peanut butter brownie, mint brownie, salted caramel, cookies and cream, whole bunch of stuff that you can try out. And I know it all sounds sweet, but these are all low in sugar, low in carbs, low in calories, high in fiber, high in protein as well. So you can check them out with all their fantastic standard flavors, the granola bars, the Built Puff bars, which are marshmallow based. They're awesome. I don't know how they made protein infused marshmallows, but they did it over at Built. And you can get it today, and you can get 15% off as well if you use the promo code LOCKED15, all one word. Don't forget to use the numerals as well at built.com. That's 15% off with the promo code LOCKED15 at built.com. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. We are wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints. Thanks again so much for all of y'all for making today's episode of Locked On Saints your first listen of the day. Know that we're going to be back with you tonight for your second listen of the day as well, and we'll see you again tomorrow with another live episode right after training camp practice. So far, the Wi-Fi is holding up. I'm really pleased. So hopefully this comes out really well over on the audio side and the video side for those of you that are watching later. But it's looking good so far for all of you who are here now, all 392 of you, which is just absolutely insane. Thank you so much for being here with us. Let's wrap up today's episode with a look at where the New Orleans Saints stand when it comes to the linebacker room. Now, Pete Werner, as I mentioned before, was not a part of practice today. Didn't see him. As we mentioned, we saw some players that didn't participate in practice, but that were still present, right? That were still around and that were still there. Jameis Winston, Alante Taylor. We saw some snaps from Ryan Ramczyk, a little bit more than we're used to seeing, for instance, things like that. GZ Go Hard, yes, you have to check out the Built Bars. You have to. So when you look at where the New Orleans Saints are right now at linebacker, it's easy to maybe get a little bit nervous because you have a starter that's out for the moment. And he's dealing with this groin injury that kept him out and kept him from getting involved early on in practice. And then now that's kind of become a repeated thing to where he's dealing with it again. And so that's why he's been out for the past couple of practices. So it's easy to get a little bit panicked about that, and I completely understand it, right? It's entirely warranted. I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't be, but what I will tell you is this. The Saints' depth at linebacker, I think, is better than we thought it was. And we certainly saw that with Chase Hansen, right? We know Caden Ellis is your starter at strong side right now. I think that's pretty much a lock at this point. You've got Demario Davis. But what the New Orleans Saints did this week was wise, and that was going out and signing Jon Bostic, the former Washington and other team linebacker, who's only 1 year separated from two back-to-back 100-plus tackle seasons. This guy is not a takeaway artist. He's not a guy that's going to get you a bunch of interceptions. He's not a Lawrence Taylor type that's going to get you a bunch of sacks or anything like that, but he is really solid, very disciplined in the run game. And he is really solid and very disciplined in the pass coverage when asked to be. He's not the greatest coverage guy. He's not as good there as maybe a Demario Davis is, but he is still very talented. And so to see him, kind of like what we saw with Justin Evans, right? Justin Evans was away from the game of football for a year, had been dealing with some injuries and things like that. Now all of a sudden gets an opportunity, and number 30 has been awesome so far throughout camp. And of course, he had the interception during the Houston Texans preseason game on Saturday as well. So now as you look at Jon Bostic, he has a similar situation. So it's good to have that veteran depth. Him and Eric Wilson provide you that. They have years of experience in the NFL. The next piece, and somebody actually mentioned in the chat, is Andrew Dowell. It was the Keeping It Real Who Dat Sports podcast, one of my favorite shows out there. Absolutely go and check these guys out. A lot of fun. But when it comes down to what you're seeing with Andrew Dowell, he is somebody kind of like Chase Hansen that the Saints have shown a ton of love for over the course of the past few seasons. They consistently bring this guy back, right? They've seen him and they like him and they continuously get him involved and all that. And he's dealt with some injuries in the past and unfortunately have cut things short. Maybe there's a little bit of numbers game that goes to it and stuff like that sometimes too, but he's been really, really solid. And then of course you've got Zack Baun, who, look, as I've said, Zack Baun, if he is underperforming or as he has underperformed at any point in his career in the NFL so far, it's not his fault, right? He's been asked to change positions entirely and do something he's not ever been asked to do before. And he got drafted as a guy that was coming out as a pass rusher who was an outstanding pass rusher for Wisconsin, and now he's being asked to drop back and cover and do off-ball linebacker things and stuff like that. So I'm not really mad about any of that. So does this mean that the New Orleans Saints are in positions where they should just stop paying attention to the linebacker room altogether? No, that's not what I'm saying. If they got an opportunity to trade for Roquan Smith, you go and trade for Roquan Smith, right? You do those things because what have we seen from the New Orleans Saints in the past? It doesn't matter if the position group is good. It doesn't matter if the position group is one that's won them games. They'll still look to improve upon it, particularly over on the defensive side. That has always been Dennis Allen's thought process. So I'm not trying to say, oh, don't worry about it. Linebackers are fine. You can't say that about any position on any roster at any point, right? You got Patrick Mahomes. You still want a good backup. Right? You still want to create competition at every level of your team. It's how the team gets better. It's how you progress, especially at this point in the offseason when it comes to those types of positions that you get a lot of that competition, right? Patrick Mahomes is probably a bad example. I know you're going to hate me for that one, but you get it. So the big piece of it behind all of this is that, yeah, the Saints linebackers are not necessarily the guys that you would have expected, because I know a lot of people wanted Quan Alexander on the roster. However, it's very likely Quan Alexander was offered a contract and a role as a backup and didn't want that role. Pete Werner's the guy. Demario Davis is the guy. That's one of the reasons why I doubt they're going to go and hang up and give a bunch of assets to bring Roquan Smith to New Orleans, for instance. They're not going to do that if they already have their starters, and you're not trading for Roquan Smith to make him a depth piece. But if you get the chance, you do that, and then you create competition amongst those starters. That's fine. But it's not the end of the world right now in terms of where the New Orleans Saints are at linebacker, because they do have some solid depth pieces that know the system, that are familiar with what it is that Dennis Allen wants to do, how to play in the second level in the system, which is a different second level than, let's say, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Chicago Bears, for instance. Plus, you end up with a situation here to where there are still other options for you to explore should you need to. So it's not the end of the world, but you'd still love to see Pete Werner back out on the field. So that's the next part that you're looking for. When can you get Pete Werner back out there? All right. I don't have a slide for it, but I'll say this. Today's Lanyap, on Friday, keep an eye out for number 89, Rashid Shaheed, the wide receiver out of Weber State, who is a return specialist like there has never been one before. This guy's resume in college is absolutely insane. I'm just going to read a quick passage from his college sort of profile on the Weber State website. So he finished his career as the FCS all-time leader in kickoff return touchdowns with 7. He's the only player in Weber State history to earn All-American honors 4 times. He also earned first-team All-Big Sky honors 4 times, one of 3 players in history to do so. He was the all-time leader in career kick return average at 29.1 yards per return, played 53 games in his career there, and finished with 5,478 all-purpose yards, which was 3rd most in the school's history. He was also 3rd in career punt return yardage, and he is also 7th in career receiving yards with 2,178 yards and 18 touchdowns, 10th in receptions with 147. So you're not probably going to see him catch a lot of passes, but we have seen him field a lot of punt returns and kick returns, okay? Kick returns and actually seeing them start to run stuff back, few and far between, if ever, in practice. You never really see it in practice. However, you do get to see these guys catch and bring in and field those punts and those kickoffs. He got a lot of work there today. So don't be surprised if you see him get some opportunities as a returner on Friday night going up against the Green Bay Packers. I think it's time. It seems like he's healthy. He started on the NFI list. They kept him around forever, and then now he's out on the field. So really, really good thing, and something to definitely keep an eye out on. Rashid Shaheed, number 89, in the return game going into the Packers preseason game on Friday. Remember, the Packers special teams was not good last year. They worked on improving it over the course of this offseason, but Rashid Shaheed, if he sees just a little sliver of daylight in that Green Bay Packers return unit, you better believe he's going to take advantage of it. All right, y'all. Do me a favor, hit the like button. Do me a favor, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I appreciate y'all so much for being here for another episode of Locked On Saints, another live episode here on the show. Make sure you get your questions in the chat so that I can get those answered in the third period of tonight's pre-recorded show, in addition to today's Lanyap. We'll get to a little bit more of that as well. In tonight's episode, we're going to highlight a little bit more of the performances of Paulson Adebo and the defense, and we'll also break down a little bit, get you some more updates on how guys like Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, and some of the receivers performed as well. A little hard to watch because the defense is going up against the Green Bay defense on one practice field, and then on the right, the offense is going up against the Green Bay defense on another practice field, so you're kind of trying to get notes from all this other stuff. So we'll just make sure that we get you as much coverage as we can, just like we did today. I appreciate you as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day. While I record this next episode, go ahead and check out the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast, Locked On Dynasty Football as well, to get you ready for your fantasy football season. Less than 30 minutes every single Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcast, and on YouTube as well. Appreciate you as always for making me a part of your day, part of your routine, saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, say hi, and for everything you need in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.